So what's up guys, it's Ash here and welcome back to a brand new video. Now as most of you guys are aware, there was a new title update for FC24 today, so if you guys are struggling after the update, I have some 4-2-2 tactics which might be able to help you out. But yeah, with all that aside guys, please be sure to drop this a like as it does help me out, and yeah, let's get right into the video. If you guys want coins for FC24, make sure you check out MMOEXP.com. Their link is down in the description. They're very fast, they're very cheap, they're very reliable, and if you use my code Rema, you can get yourself a lovely 5% discount. Okay then guys, so starting off with the custom tactics for the defensive style, we like to have this on balance. Now the reason we have this on balanced is because it gives you the best control over your defense. So when you want to be aggressive and press your opponent, you can do that, and then when you want to be a little bit more passive and drop off, you can also do that. When it comes to applying pressure in FC24, we also don't even need to use these pressure tactics. We'll get onto something in a moment, but balanced is the best way to go with this. Now moving on to the defensive width guys, I've tried telling people this a lot recently, but it doesn't actually matter how wide your defensive width is at the moment because it's not going to prevent those cutbacks. If people want to go down the wing and do those cutback plays, they're always going to find a way to do it. So what I think you're better off doing is lowering that width so you're at least nice and compact, which will stop all those attacks through the middle, and when you want to go out and prevent those cutbacks, you can still do that. I think it's at least best to be nice and compact than, you know, have an open defense just to try and stop the cutbacks, which will still happen. So I think it's better to have that narrow defense. Now moving on to the depth guys, this is what I was on about when it came to the pressure in this game. So on the new gen versions of the game, if you have your depth on 71 or higher, you will get this automatic press from the AI. Now this is a very strong press, it's very overpowered, and it doesn't really require you to do anything. You also get an automatic overload of the ball side, which makes it very difficult for your opponent to play through you, and it also breaks their attacking AI. Now the most broken thing about this tactic is the fact that your players will have a minimal stamina drain. So, you know, when you use pressure tactics, your player's stamina will drain a lot, but when you use 71 depth, for some reason, your player's stamina just stays the same. So this is something that needs to be fixed, but right now, very overpowered. If you are on the old gen version of the game, though, you can just lower your depth to 60 and you will be fine. Now moving on to the build-up play guys, we have this on balance. This is because it gives you the most controlled form of build-up. So when you have this on balance, you can pick and choose when and where you use each form of build-up. So if you want to play slowly, you can do that. And then if you decide you want to play a little bit faster, you can also do that. So balanced allows us to pick and choose when and where we use each style of build-up, which is very useful. Now moving on to chance creation guys, this one is very important as well. And we have this on direct passing. Now the reason direct passing is so important is because it's the only chance creation tactic which will actually help you beat park the bus players. With direct passing, when your opponent has all of his players parked in the box, direct passing means your players will commit forward to making those runs, and then when the opposition defender follows them, they will then track back, so there is an open passing opportunity. This is very, very effective at beating park the bus. You also seem to get much better movement with direct passing, so it is just a really good tactic to use, and I do suggest it a lot. Now moving on to the attacking width guys, with the 4-2-2 I have the width on 45. Now the reason for this is I don't want to have a crazy high width because then it plays out more like a 4-2-4, which is not, you know, what we want with this formation. And we don't like to have it too narrow either because then your players are just glued together. So you want to find that balance where the formation is not too wide and not too narrow. Now moving on to players in box guys, this is a preference thing. You can pretty much have this on whatever you want. I just have this on 6 at the moment. This is so we can get a few players into the box to help us finish off those chances, but if we lose out on possession, we're not always going to get counter-attacked. If I'm feeling aggressive, I will up this, but you know, most of the time I'll just keep this on 6 with this formation. For corners and free kicks, this one is also a preference thing. I just have these both on 2, but you guys can do whatever you want with this. It does not really matter, so just pick whatever you're comfortable with. Sorry to interrupt the video guys, but I have noticed around 90% of you that watch the content and not subscribed. So if you are finding any of these videos helpful, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, as it does help me out massively. Also, don't forget to drop the video a like as well. And with all that aside, guys, let's get back to the video. Now, moving on to the player instructions, guys, on one of the strikers, maybe like my more technical striker, doesn't really matter. I have him on stay central and get in behind. We have him on stay central, so we always have somebody in the central position to receive the ball. If you have both strikers on like drift wide or balance width, sometimes they get a little bit lost, which isn't always good. So at least one of these strikers should be on stay central, so you always have somebody in those central positions. We also have this player on get in behind, so he's always looking to make those runs in behind the opposition defense. Now, I don't usually like getting behind, but in this game it's very important because a lot of players are using this 71 depth, so it is important that you have players to get in behind those high defensive lines, as it is your best bet at beating that press. Now, moving on to the other striker, guys, I leave him on balance width, get in behind, and stay forward. Now, this is best suited for like a taller striker, I would say. Balance width is quite useful because sometimes this player will drift out into the wider areas, and if it's a taller player and they're up against the fullback in those wide positions, a lot of the time what you can do is lob the ball up to them and they'll win that header every time. So it's useful to have this player on balance width, as you get a lot more movement out of him and it actually catches your opponent by surprise a lot of the time. We also have this player on getting behind for the same reasons as the other striker. We want him to get in behind that opposition defense, as it is our best chance at creating more chances. We also have this player on stay forward, so we always have an outlet when we win the ball back. If you have everybody on comeback on defense, you don't really have anybody to aim for when you win the ball back. But if you have this player on stay forward, you always have at least one option when you win the ball back. Now, moving on to both of the cams, guys, we have them on comeback on defense and get into the box for cross. Now, comeback on defense is still very important, and the reason it's so important is because it will make this team defend in a 4-4-2 shape. Now, if you look at the two CDMs in this formation by default, you'll see there is a lot of space next to them in the wider areas. Now, we want to get rid of this because a good opponent will always exploit that space. So what we need to do is put these players on comeback on defense, so they will sit next to those two CDMs when we don't have the ball to block out those wider spaces. This means we'll have very good coverage of both the narrow and wide areas, which means we're good in both the attack and the defense. So very important to have this guy on comeback on defense as well as the other cam. Get into the box across means these players aren't hesitant to get into the penalty area and commit into the box for those chances. If you have them on balance crossing runs, they can be a little bit static and it can be quite frustrating if you don't see them going for the ball. Now, moving on to the left CDM, guys, I do use a more defensive-minded player. Now, I do suggest always having at least one defensive-minded midfielder. This is to bring balance into that midfield. So on this more defensive-minded player, I have him on stay back while attacking, cut passing lanes, and cover centre. Stay back is pretty self-explanatory. This guy is more defensive. We don't want him going forward, so stay back makes the most sense. Cut passing lanes means this player will always look to intercept those dangerous passes, help you regain possession, and help you get kick-started on the attack. Another very good instruction. And then cover center means this player will always cover those central areas, which is, is relevant to what I said about those two cams coming back. The cams will cover those wider areas, so we want this CDM to cover the central areas. For the right CDM, guys, I do use a more box-to-box balanced attacking player, whatever you want to call him. I got cooked for saying box-to-box CDM once, but you guys know what I mean. So on this player, we have him on the default settings and cover center. We have him on the default settings because he is a more box-to-box style player, so we don't just want him to defend, we kind of just want him to attack and defend, have a bit of a free roll. And then the only important thing is that we have him on cover center for the same reason as the other CDM, where he will cover those central areas as opposed to the wing. Now, on to the fullbacks, guys. On your more attacking-minded fullback, have him on balanced attack and overlap. Now, the reason this is good is because the 4-2-2 is quite a narrow formation, which means your players will primarily be in the central areas. So by having one of these fullbacks on balanced overlap, it gives you that wider option when you're going forward. It gives you another angle, and it is very underrated, guys. The amount of people that still don't utilize this is actually quite crazy because it will give you a lot more chances. So when your opponent is like blocking blocking you through the middle, you have this wider player to give you that option and help you out. So very important, balanced attack and overlap. For the other fullback guys, the more defensive minded one of the two, I suggest stay back and overlap. This is so you always have at least 3 defenders back at a time, but when you send him on a run forward, he'll make the overlapping runs the same way the other fullback does. As for the 2 centre backs guys, I leave them alone and I do not touch them. And the keeper, if you want, comes across this sweeper keeper. Does not really matter though. But yeah, that is everything for the video guys. If you have enjoyed or found this useful, please be sure to drop this a like. It does really help me out. Sub to the channel if you are new so you never miss out on any of these videos, and don't forget to turn on notifications. And with all that aside guys, I hope you have a great rest of your day, and I will catch you all in the next one. Peace out guys.